So I believe everyone has had something for morning tea this morning. We will continue with our program as stated in the program. So basically this morning we have heard a lot from Loretta, especially with regards to virtual assets. Loretta will be here for the rest of the day, and there will be a session at 3 p.m. this afternoon on financial dealers' assets, growth and challenges of financial dealers, which means those of you who have licenses or having issues with licenses or application for resident manager and all those kind of issues, the manager of the supervision department will be moderating this afternoon sessions with regards to financial dealers. But for now, take our mind back out of virtual assets. Just a brief presentation on personal property security registry. So what is the personal property security registry? So we have this legislation. This legislation was enacted by Parliament in 2008. Okay, so it has been in place for a quite number of years. We have a lot of users of the registry, but many people, especially the members of the rural part of Vanuatu, are not aware of the bill, and also most business dealers in town are not really aware of this legislation. So basically what is this legislation about? That's basically what I will be talking about today. So the purpose of the Act is to provide for creation and enforcement of security interests. So the key word for this session is security interest, okay? Like I said, taking our mind off virtual assets, saving it for this afternoon, but this is more a domestic legislation. So it provides for the creation and enforceability of security interests in personal property. We'll be looking further as to what constitutes personal property in this legislation. Okay. I will also be showing a chart on the use, who are using the registry, and also the growth of the registry over the years. Okay. So also this legislation determines priorities over security interest in the same property, and also provides for enforcement of securities in personal property other than consumer goods. And it also serves as a registry. It serves as a registry. So basically the PPSR serves as an electronic notice board. Okay? The banks use it, the lenders use it, and the major part of the population are not using it. So the intention of this session is how we can get our farmers or those who are dealing with trade outside, how they can use this registry to protect their interests. So what is a personal property? It does not refer to land or mortgage land. So basically the registry covers tangible properties. These are just some of them. Okay. I believe in our daily dealings, we sell cars, or we deal with farming, or we deal with other things without knowing that there is a registry. It's accessible to public at large, where you can go online with a minimum fee of 3,000 Vanuatu, to sort of register your interest so that it's accessible to the public at large before you can actually, example, approach a bank for a borrowing or something of that sort. So it refers to Paper, chattel paper, okay, that is evidence in monetary obligation in a security interest. Lease of specific goods or accessions. Okay, it can also include documents in title and goods. Okay, tangible property that includes crops, unborn young animals, trees that have been severed or felled or converted into timber, mineral that have been extracted. Okay, so traditionally, I will show you the chart is mostly the banks. Only the banks are using it. But the law is stating here that everybody can use the registry, especially our farmers, but they are not using the registry. So we are trying to promote the registry. So personal property extends, okay, to intangible assets, especially in the intellectual properties, investment securities, money, bank accounts, and also negotiable instruments. Okay, those things can also be registered in the registry. Okay. Okay, so after said, the registry does not relate to land because there is already a lands registry. We have a lands department that registers land dealings, mortgage and everything. So we don't need to duplicate the system. So there's already a land registry. So we are dealing with properties other than land, which we can use in the registry, accessible to public. Of course, if you go to the lands department, you have to do a search. But with the registry, it's 24/7 accessible to public, to the lenders. So if you approach something, or if you approach the bank, after having registered your property in the registry, the bank will easily have access to it and confirm whether or not your property has been registered in the registry. So that gives the bank some sort of comfort for them to make a decision before they lend you any money. Okay. So basically, the security interest, the meaning of security interest is money in personal property that's created or provided for by a transaction in substance, secures payment of performance of an obligation. Okay, this is directly the definition extracted from the legislation. Okay, the form of transaction. Okay, having regard to the form of the transaction and also the identity of the people that has title to the collateral. Okay, I will be also inviting the National Bank of Vanuatu. They will be here after my presentation to give a brief presentation on how they are viewing this registry with regards to their products that they are promoting now, especially in the rural areas. There's a member already here, but Mr. Chon Aruhuri will be here shortly to sort of relate to us how the National Bank of Vanuatu is using the registry. So the registry relates to a fixed charge, a floating charge, chattel mortgage, sale management, hire purchase agreement, pledge, trust receipt, consignment, an asset arrangement, an assignment or a lease. So when we had this registry in 2008, we had businesses such as Wilco, Computer World, who were using the registry with regards to hire purchase because they were allowing things to be purchased on hire purchase, but they need some form of security. So all the details of things that were engaged in the hire purchase were uploaded in the registry so that the lender has some comfort. Also, the borrower will not default in his or her payment because if he or she does default, then the hire purchase company can easily claim the property that's already in the registry. So what is PPSR? Basically, it's the registry. Okay, we have registries in Vanuatu. Like I said, we have the lands registry, we have the shipping registry, and we have the Vanuatu Financial Service Commission as a registry. Okay? Traditionally, we have companies registry, charitable associations registry, and all other registries that we perform that role in the commission. In addition to that, we are also the registry of the personal property properties. So it is an online notice board. Okay? It's basically an online notice board that offers security to the lender. Okay? So by making registration in the registry, you're showing anyone that you're claiming an interest in the goods or asset that you are selling. Okay? Traditionally, we trade with others with basically a contract or something that we trust the other party to adhere or to respect the contract. There is nothing in addition to that to say that, to give that extra comfort to the lender. So this is something that lenders can use. Okay? They can pin up the notice in the registry to say that this vehicle or this washing machine or this TV screen belongs to Wilco, and it's going to be registered in Wilco's name with details and everything there. So the person or the purchaser cannot easily go away and start selling or doing things because it's locked under Wilco's name and it's accessible free of charge to everybody, including the banks and everyone. Okay. So who benefits from the PPSR? So if you're a business that sells on terms, for instance, retentions, or you lease or hire goods for at least 2 years, in the case of some of the business we have in town. Okay, Wilco has just stopped, some years ago, they stopped hire purchase. I believe Computer World is still doing hire purchase, and we are liaising with Computer World to sort of have this agreement in place to sort of encourage them to use the registry. And also, if you lend money or give credit, the banks, like I said, I will be showing how the PPSR is being used in Vanuatu. Then PPSR will be good for your benefit. Okay? So we need to show some graphs as to how it is being used, instead of just talking and not giving you any evidence. So the biggest user, the biggest user of PPSR is Credit Corp. Okay? They deal a lot with vehicles. Okay? So all of the vehicles that are obtained on loan from Credit Corp are all in the registry. We can go through the registry after the presentation to sort of see the specific detail or the registration number of the plate, whether the mortgage has been discharged or is still there. So Credit Corp is the biggest user. And then we have the Great Bank. I think it's the second user. And then the ANZ Bank. Okay. It's no longer Westpac, of course. BSB. NBV, another big user here. And then some of you, okay, some of you are also users. This is now marked here. And then the Reserve Bank, Wilco, and others. So this is how the registry is currently being used by the businesses in town. Okay. So for those of you who are new to it, perhaps if you are also in the lending business or trying to, if you're not in the lending business but you're trying to sell something to another person, a vehicle or a machine, this is something you could consider to sort of protect your interest in addition to what the bank has already offered you. So with regards to the growth, okay, it started in 2013. That's when we started receiving the interest, especially the clients. So it went up in 2016, and then it came down again, and it started, getting up again in 2021. So the business is there, but we feel that in terms of promotion, perhaps we need to do more promotions. The current businesses are doing well, but we're trying to target those who perhaps may not know of such a registry, or even the farmers in the island, because the registry allows for farmers to register their crops. But how do we deal with that? That's where the National Bank of Vanuatu will come and perhaps say a bit of insight on that. So how does it work? Okay, so if you're a business that sells goods, stuff on credit, and have your terms in writing, then you can use the system. The registries, the PPSR registration protects your retention of title in those goods until the debtor pays all your money back. Okay, that's why we have the banks using them. Okay, it's very important for them to use this. Okay, but it also applies to ordinary citizens. So if you lease goods for more than 2 years, in your written agreement, by registering the interest, it protects you as the lessor. And in case your customer goes bankrupt, insolvent, or does not pay, sorts of reiterates what I was referring to earlier. So it's important to register your interest, your security interest. The definition extends to intellectual property and also personal property. For instance, painting and art or an investment. Say if you are an artist, you do a lot of good paintings and things like that. You could have those items registered to really protect your work, okay? So that it gives that comfort to the bank. So when you walk into the bank, in addition to the valuation that the bank has to do and other considerations that the bank has to do to give them that comfort, they can also have the comfort that you have registered your work in the PPSR. That's already a tick for you before the bank considers other considerations according to the risk appetite. Many of us would think that having a contract is sufficient. Okay, we understand that legally a contract is binding, but we feel that having your security registered in the registry gives you more comfort in terms of doing business. So you might think a contract or a sales agreement is sufficient, okay? We all understand that. That gives you protection when things go unplanned, okay? A contract on its own will not protect you, no matter what it says in its terms, okay? Of course, there will be arguments, you'll have to go to court and things like that, okay? You need to register on the PPSR to protect your security interest. Should your financial customer get into some financial difficulties or bankrupt, insolvency, or runs away, trying to sell the product to someone else, the buyer will have the obligation, if he knows about the registry, to firstly make the check, the due diligence check on the registry, just to confirm whether this property that I'm buying is free from any encumbrances, free from mortgage, or has been discharged. So we have the security to help buyers, especially to do the check first. So if you are as the secured party, you as the secured party may take possession of and sell the goods when the debtor is in default or the goods is at risk. So when you register, okay, when there's default, you can possess the items that are subject to the registration, and you can sell it off to take to recover your money. So who can access the registrar? Anyone can use the PPSR. Most of you use it, I believe. Okay. You can do a public search online and satisfy yourself as to whether or not this vehicle that you are intending to buy or these crops that you are intending to buy, whether or not they are registered in the registry. If they are not registered, then you will have the first decision to make whether or not this is a genuine deal, or make further investigations with other stakeholders. But the PPSR is something that should be very helpful. To register or put up a notice, okay, the charge is 3,000 Vanuatu, which we give you a login and a username for you to use. So that's the only charge. You pin up until such time when the debt is discharged, then you can go back in the system and say mortgage discharge or whatever, payment has been done, and that clears off, but it's still part of the record. Okay? So basically, that is what the PPSR is about. That's the end of my presentation. I will now ask the National Bank of Vanuatu, Mr. John, perhaps to say a few remarks before I open up for questions. Yes, ma'am. Johnny. Yes. Bye-bye, Captain.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Thomas. Presenter Law VFSC in regards to this PPSR. Thank you to Law, give you opportunity Law National Bank plus have come forward to participate in this event. As you may recall, this PPSR may come about as a result of our CRP summits before, late 1990s. The experiences of our people, especially in rural areas, has been the fact that securities or any lending the rural sector is more or less very difficult, and it's somewhat not available at all. So the efforts towards legislating a piece of law in regards to PPSR has been a result of that demand coming from people blame here throughout the country. The bank can be start rolling out lending blame rule law 2003, more or less 20 years ago. Until today, I think bank can use no more vehicles as a tool to register assets in rural areas because of evidence of serial numbers that you can use, especially in times when it comes to repossessions. However, the biggest challenge for me is considering and recognizing movable assets other than vehicles. This is the biggest challenge that we face in rural areas. The bank in itself has its own ways of how to use movable assets, but they may be very challenging because here you're talking about animals, you're talking about root crops, you're talking about other machinery that exists in rural areas. Quite difficult to manage. And in terms of recovery, you might have assets declared, but in the course of time, those assets get sold without notification to you as a bank or a lender. So meetings, this timing is quite important, especially maybe because information may go out enough or disseminate enough to the larger population, especially rural. The challenges, I think it is that when it comes to considering registration of assets into this PPSR, having access to the network. Those of us who have easy access to mobile phones or PCs and stuff like this in rural areas can do. But the majority of our people still do not have any access to this. And not only that, but education, awareness as to how people can access the registry and register their assets. I mean, this is the biggest challenge that you make at today. But I think it's a positive way forward to start it now, and rolling it out to a wider population would be more useful and helpful for future years to come. We have had some discussions with VFSC in terms of the need to converting maybe a large number of what we have in our books in terms of assets which are not actually registered inside law PPSR but can do so from today moving forward. That would be very helpful for lending institutions, especially those of us in the banks. In our case, we have quite a large number of collaterals for lending in rural, but also Mital and Fini say these are not even registered at all in the PPSR. We have our own means, but maybe not easy to pass. We use a lot of our network with them support long old chiefs play me. The chiefs in our rural communities play a very important role in assisting, providing securities and certifying securities in rural areas. Mainly when you talk about mobile assets, these are quite easy to do in rural areas with the help of chief governance systems. It's working well, but in some cases it can be very challenging. Also, and finish unless we have our officers online and on ground, moving about to verify assets. Rural areas. Some customers will at times sell off those assets without notifying even the bank. So we have other means. We'll also continue to encourage individuals to look for other alternate assets to use to secure lending in rural areas. It's not to say that it cannot be done. It's working well for us. As we educate people in rural areas, people start to understand the need to provide securities for covering lending in rural areas. I don't see it as a difficulty. It can be expanded and secured much more better, I guess, with the help of registering assets into this PPSR. Going forward from here, meetings have it not too difficult. I think in our case, we have been lending for more than 20 years now. Okay, sorry. Law rural, it's been working okay for us, I think, for the last 20 years, and the collateral assets being used becomes more helpful for us, especially in terms of recovery. But also, we mentioned and finish, at times you run into challenges, especially when individuals start selling off assets without notification, law lending. But today, I think this has been improved, especially with education. And as much as what we can do in the rural area, a lot to do is education. Educating individuals or the population communities, probably understanding what it means in financial services, the use of services the banks can provide. Equally, the responsibilities, especially when it comes to repaying of their loans. And at times where it got difficulties, then a fallback position is going back to those assets or being used as securities for lending. Over the years until now, we find it very useful, and we only have a very marginal default in rural areas. That is because we provide an education program that is rolled out throughout the whole country. Started off in 2012, Ikam Kasentede. So as much as what we can do in terms of our rural lending and the securities required for those lending facilities, we mentioned in finish, education is the core piece of success in maintaining lending in a rural space. So as far as we're concerned, we're quite happy with what we're doing now. Security-wise, we have our own mechanisms that can provide for possessions of assets even when a customer defaults. But like I said, most of them, it's pretty good to see that whenever there is a difficulty, we can access assets and sell off. So that is the understanding that is within our communities, especially chiefs, but more and more, especially customers who understand their responsibility altogether. So I see the registration very important in this exercise, and it's a matter of educating our individual customers around the country, both in urban centers, but particularly in the rural area. Because the challenges for me is that there's scope for future growth in business activities, but the other piece that is the challenging piece is actually the means to register assets. I don't see it as a difficulty. We are enforcing what we are doing now, and it seems to be working well, but I think it adds more value, especially when getting them or individual customers, anybody else other than customers of the bank, but those who have assets can actually register into PPSR. Our difficulty also is access, or how to register. And I think this forum or this event is quite important for preparation or awareness, not only here, but majority of our people are in rural. So education actually very important to encourage individuals, plus have a look at need here. But at this point in time, we're quite happy, and we're working closely with VFSC to standardize all security formalities where bank can start using, that we can also be able to use this for any lending across every products where we offer the rural area. At this point in time, we don't have anything as yet except vehicle registrations. But there is a massive amount of assets that are there that we can use. But we just have to standardize the formalities and get it across to VFSC. You must have a look, say which ones can apply first, and then start promoting those to be implemented. Sorry, I didn't have any presentations, but I just want them to contribute no more system delivery law outcomes for me, but I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Haruhuri, for the presentation. We open up the time now for discussion, questions. As you will have seen from his presentation, the risk appetite from the banks are quite high, so they're only using the registry for vehicle purposes. That's all. All these are related to vehicles. So how can we extend? How can we extend what the law has allowed to cover other cash crops or things that are of value but are not currently being traded? So perhaps I'll leave the floor open to anyone who wish to ask any question or add to the discussion. The commissioner is here. We've invited the director of the Department of Agriculture and the representative from the ADB to be part of this panel session, sort of to give the other side of how the agriculture department can assist, especially with farmers. They indicated that they'll be here, but perhaps they're busy with other things, so they're not here. So we're just using the bank's experience with regards to how they're thinking of incorporating the registry as part of the products that they are advertising. So if we have any questions, please, the floor is open now for questions. We have around 25 minutes before our lunch, which is prepared. The lunch is down at the beach, so it's not served outside here. It's down at the beach, so perhaps everyone will take a bit of walk down for the lunch before we come back. But before lunch, we have 25 minutes to ask any questions or perhaps discussions. Thank you. Yeah?
Can an individual use the registry?
Yes.
So if I was to sell a motor vehicle and the purchaser only pays me a portion of the purchase price, I can register an interest on the, I can register the whole transaction on the registry.
Correct.
Okay. And the fee is 3,000 Vanuatu.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's 3,000 Vanuatu, but we maintain the registry. It's hosted overseas, so we maintain the registry. The fee, as you know, is very small. Perhaps that's something for consideration in the future as to whether or not we can separate the fees for financial institutions and also for natural persons like yourself. Because the banks, as you see, they're making very good use of the registry, but at a very small fee. But that's something for consideration. Because we maintain the registry, it's costing the commission some money just to maintain the registry. Johnny.
Thank you, John.
Is there any time limit within which you must register under the registry to be effective?
Sorry, the question is on time limit.
Yeah, it's a question of time limit. If I buy something, can I register it 3 years later? Do I have to register it within 30 days? My interest?
Thank you for the question. There is currently no time limit. The onus is on the lender to register the interest on the registry. So there is no time limit, but it's up to the lender or whoever is selling the property to sort of register the security interest on the registry.
And what stops a person from registering something he's already sold?
What stops a person from
registering on the registry an article which he has already sold? What checks do you do to
Okay,
make sure?
if it has been sold, perhaps the transaction has been completed. The seller has sold the item to the buyer, who's now acquired good title over the property. Perhaps the registry might not be useful to the transaction since it's been sold. But the buyer, who's now had good title on the property, may like to register the property in his name since he's now the new owner of the property, in case he wants to sell it to a third party in the future. Oh, Commissioner might want to add something. Come on up.
We're supposed to be in the advance of technology and we're facing all these issues. I think, indeed, if you're a lender and you secure this interest, even if the borrower has entered into another transaction to a third party or dispose it, you still have this evidence that you can follow up and in court to claim that. So there's challenge about monitoring and all this, but you can have this evidence in the registry that I have secured already against this asset. This borrower cannot enter into any transaction until his obligation, her obligation is cleared. So I think that's what we can say here. It's we know that people can do all this, but I think part of it is when you enter into an arrangement, it's important that you tell your borrower that, look, this is what is in there. It's very clear you cannot do any of these things. Make sure you complete what you have owed me before you. Otherwise, I'm going to pursue based on this registry.
There's one question from Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for that good background on what MBV is doing in the rural community. You've done a lot, and we are all applaud. Thank you for that. You mentioned about the issue with educational awareness in the rural community. While you were talking about that idea, I was just thinking about how we can get the message across faster. And we know a lot of the business entrepreneurs in the community, mostly a majority are cover farmers. Majority cover farmers and across Vanuatu. And they all have, in the community, we have cooperative systems. We have, I think statistics are here, was about 300 cooperative set up in, across the country. I was just wondering if MBV can leverage that network of cooperative, using them as to register on this PPSR for the farmers in the community, because some of this community cooperative, they also buy cover from all the farmers. So maybe that's an opportunity where we can leverage that network of cooperative in educating and registering the PPSR customers across the country. So, you know, that's team effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good comment. It's taken on board by, of course, the NPV here, and of course the Commission. Thank you. Very good comment. Yeah. The Attorney General.
Thank you, John. A question: Would the third party's knowledge of the registration of an item on the registry, would that knowledge indicate them as being bona fide purchaser?
Okay, that's a legal question. Okay. Yes, if the third party, as you know, does not have any knowledge of the PPSR, or does not have any knowledge of the previous transaction between the first seller and the second seller, of course, the doctrine of bona fide purchaser will come in, of course, because that is the principle in law, that whoever buys any property in good faith acquires good title. Okay. But as long as he or she shows, you know, that he or she has read the registry, but regardless of the registry engages in selling, then that is an issue. Thank you. The direct chairman of Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd just like to admire the Vanuatu Financial Service Commission with the registry and what you're currently trying to do, which actually emphasise in giving security and to the banks and other legal institutions around the world. We do understand that in the Pacific, and especially in Vanuatu, in remote areas, we've got difficulty for our society to access to technology. And when you start talking about registering, you start talking about scanning documents. You're starting to putting official document on platforms where they may not have internet access, scanner, or knowledge of how to do it. And today, we're actually facing that difficulty already with associations, which by law, if they're not registered, they're breaking the laws. So I do understand that Port Vila, maybe Luganville, Lenakel, maybe Lakatoro, we want to go very fast and we want to move with the world and we want to lead. But we have to understand that we still got 83 islands, or I would say maybe 80 islands, if we are using 3 right now regulated, that would be struggling.
Thank you for the comment. Perhaps I will answer and the Commissioner will add. You will have heard from the Commissioner's speech this morning that we have presence basically throughout the province. As I speak, the last province is Torpa province, which we're supposed to travel to Torpa last week to sign the MOU with the province, just to enable this, the provinces to sort of work with the VFSC to partner into this kind of initiatives. For instance, registration of business name or charitable, or this registry. We are doing that. We have the office in Santo who is liaising with the whole Sanma province. We have a very good relationship with Tafea province. There'll be a presentation in the afternoon on how Tafea province is working with the VFSC in making sure that all business in Tafea province, especially Tana and other islands in Tafea, are registering. And the rate of registering has been very good. So we'll hear more about the success story in Tafea this afternoon. But it's a very good comment. We take on board those comments on how we can make life easier for the people in the rural area. It's a challenge. We accept that and we agree.
Thank you. That's a very important question. It boils down to this issue of collaborations, and it's important for all bodies within the government, private sectors to partner and do these things, this effort forward. I think through this initiative of expanding our service, we have entered into MOU agreements with particularly provinces. And now we're looking at other stakeholders where we can ride on the infrastructure to be able to deliver the service. The VNBF, it's attached with this mobile registration. We do setups in provinces headquarters, but then we have come up with this mobile product as well, where we actually get a small generator, a laptop scanner, and then we provide accessibility to internet, and we can go in remote places to actually undertake this business delivering of service. But again, it comes to this point of partnership. We need to work with telecom. We need to have an understanding to make this happen. So I think more and more we can see this issue about communication. Yeah. Yeah, I think having said that, there's a lot of opportunities. What I can say as a overall remark is this initiative supported by ADB is basically to help advance and empower small businesses to be able to participate in this development. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is there's just a handful of people, entities engaging in it. And what our message is, we're providing this platform. We are paying dearly for this platform annually. We're encouraging everybody to get online and do that. It's enough time. We've been talking about access to finance and all this, but this is a facilities that can help register interest. Big banks have more secured arrangement, basically mortgage, car, but simple people, we can do that as well. So I want to ask a question. If you know of this registry before, can you put your hands up in this? Have you participated in this before? See, this is, I'd say, maybe just 40% of it. It is an indication. This thing has been here for quite a while. And here we've been talking about access to finance. We need to go out and spread this message and get it online. Tell our kids, tell our friends, there's availability of this, and we need to work together to make it happen. So I think that's the message for us. And I'm hoping, and I'm very pleased that NBV realized this. And it's, I think part of the reason is because their business, the core business, basically to support the new van and all this, and basically rural and all this. That's why, as part of the audit requirement also, it has made them to come into this area. But if it works well, we would like to partner more with them. That's part of the example to drive things forward in terms for the banks. And hopefully the other banks can pick up as well as we work together. Mark, I can see that you are. Is it lunchtime? Okay.
Thank you. I just had a question for John Arahuri. It's related to today, but not to this particular property. Can we get John's view on how to bank FDLs?
Is it a question on FDL? Oh, yeah, that's a session in the afternoon, 3 p.m. Stay here.
No. You're going beyond the timing.
Okay, John. Okay. We've requested John to specifically be here for the PPSR, but because issues with financial dealers we've given 2 hours of financial discussion this afternoon, because we understand there's a lot of interest, which has started, of course. So please stay around for that, because we have the manager supervision here with us, Joshua, who will be moderating that session. So there'll be a lot of questions from you. He will be the right person to also answer the questions with, of course, the banks and the Reserve Bank who's here. So please, Mark, stay around. You want to say something? Okay.
He's going to be there.
John will be here. Yeah. Laurie.
On the personal property securities registry, if a transaction is
Good, very good question. Thank you, Laurie. When the transaction is completed, if it's under a mortgage, it will say mortgage discharged, and it's still there. It's discharged, so it's free. It's free, but it will specifically say that, and that leads me to the next point of trying to make a demonstration now, which will go up now. Better. So, this is, say, a vehicle that belongs to a certain customer. It's accessible to public. For those of you who have seen it, for those who have never seen it, you can access it on your devices. So let's say the customer's name is Mala. This is not made up. It's a real customer. Okay? So the customer has the vehicle registration number over there. Over there. And it's under ANZ Bank, I believe, if my eyes are correct. Yes. And that's everything to do with the vehicle. The bus, the mate, the nature, everything, the color, everything is there in the registry. Okay? And then let's look at the status of the loan. That's a lot of customers. Yeah, one discharge, please. I'm trying to get here to show one way it's being discharged, so that it answers your query. So those are real customers of ANZ who may be driving vehicles in town, and you're looking at one of them thinking, oh, whether he's paid it on cash or on loan. You could just check here. Okay? Just take the registration number, go inside and check. So this is an example of discharge. So when it says discharge, that person has faithfully paid the loan, and the bank has discharged the mortgage, and the bank is not paying us an additional fee of 3,000 to discharge, but I believe it's charging the client to pay that fee to the bank. So that is something for the client and the bank. But as far as the system is concerned, the bank can coincide and say, discharge, finish. So you have the comfort in buying that vehicle from that whoever owns the vehicle. So that is the registry. This is for ANZ. The biggest user is Credit Corp. So if you go inside Credit Corp, there's a lot of us in here. One question, yes.
Good morning, Elsie from ANZ.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is with regards to information integrity and the database integrity, and the second question is around information security. So my first question with regards to database integrity, the information that's stored on your database. So currently we have got the banks, we have got the lawyers and the credit corp. Now, for the banks, we are regulated by the Reserve Bank. For the lawyers, they have the Law Commission that actually regulates the use. You're opening this up to the farmers and to the individuals, the public. Who's going to be regulating? Because for us, once the payment's made by the debtor, we are obligated to actually remove, well, not remove, but to actually state in that database that the loan has been paid in full, and that's stored. If you're opening, and of course the Reserve Bank comes after us to actually keep our obligations. What about the rest of the people that are not actually under any regulated organization? Who will come after them to actually ensure that they keep their obligations to update that registry and prevent any scams from operating using that registry for their fraudulent activities? That's one. That also protects the integrity of the registry itself. That the point that the registry is of integrity is actually valuable for us. Once the integrity is actually compromised, then the registry itself, the value diminishes, right? That's the first question. The second question, so are there any mechanisms in place currently when you're opening it up to the wider market that you can actually regulate and ensure the integrity? Now, the second question is around information security. Some of the information stored in there is quite sensitive, right? So if you're going to be opening up to the wider market, how then can you ensure the protection of those information, the sensitive information captured in your registry? Thank you.
Very good question. I thank you for that question. Very good question. Thank you for that. With regards to the integrity, the system has been in place since 2012. It's just over 10 years or more of the system being used. We have not had any issues with regards to system. It's hosted abroad with very high confidence that we place on the system. Therefore, like I said, it's not, we have not come across any issues, but we accept that it's highly sensitive information that is here. But the essence of the legislation is basically to provide a registration, a public notice board for easy access of funds or easy transaction between a buyer and a seller. There's nothing more to that. It's all information that is truth and it's uploaded as an electronic notice board. The issues that we have are more in relation to other things, like financial dealers, of course, but in terms of the registry, the banks have had that comfort, have been using it, as you can see from the pie chart. So perhaps it's just a matter of time where we will wait for that issue to arise. But we take on board things, the concerns that arise very seriously to sort of continue to maintain what is currently now the practice. Perhaps the Commissioner would like to say.
Thank you. I think the message is, it's been there for a while. What we need to know is what we are doing is basically enhancing the legal agreements that you have, or others that are able to do it. What we are making it easy is to have it available to the public as well. So I think we need to see it in this context as well, like, as a lender, as a borrower, you have access to this. Already we have online registry where a lot of this information about, registry available. And as a registry, we continue to support proper registry. And this is a facility that we feel that it's not been used to the best capacity. And we need to engage so that help promote business in the economy. Again, we are just making it formal in addition to all the agreements that you have. We have not had any case, but definitely we'll think of this as well. But at this time, it's quite good. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. The latest information we received with regards to lunch, that it's ready. If we can have one final question before we can all move down to have lunch and have a bit of rest before the next session that starts in the afternoon. Final question.
Thank you. Me got one question. I'm a side blue user. I've been a user for this PPSR or credit card before. Me want them ask them no more side blue or tangible assets, so some cattle, blow farmers, like me encourage them farmers only use PPSR. Lo side blow vehicle, me save say got serial number where you me register them and me against them all assets here. But I me go register them one cattle or one garden of crops or something. How na, but you me save put me make inside the system or someone identification say and me identify certain assets.
Thank you. By me answer Lama. Also, lo side blow agricultural crops, more all cattle especially. That is the reason why we invited the Department of Agriculture to be here to sort of give us the guidance as to how well Okatalisa make them work, plo takem or cattle for instance, plo ikamos one registration, plo give him comfort, plo one bank. Plo bank is releasing money. But as it is, that is something for the agriculture to work with us to say that this is how we do it. This is how we value cattle. This is how we value a cash crop or a plantation of cover. And then they will be the right person to give that comfort to NBV to say that, okay, NBV, this is how it's done. You can now lend the person, this farmer, this amount of money because we have confidence in the farm. It's going to be there. This is how many heads of cover or cattle. So that is the reason why we invited the agriculture department. But they are not here, but we'll keep working with them. Thank you, John.
Thank you, back and more opportunity. I'll submit that I'm finished. Now, the bank has been operating this business in rural Vanuatu for now 20 years. We consider every aspect law difficulties with me, but if anyone wants to borrow, we service that customer's interest. Meaning, every task will have been necessary to recognize an asset and be duty below bank and its officers will make sure say only actually verify them on site whether that asset actually exists. For the last few years, we introduced rural housing in rural areas. We make it compulsory. Without any registration whatsoever, we make it compulsory that a customer must have assets equivalent to the amount of money they're borrowing. So that includes physically verifying what is actually available. If a customer has cover, for example, we ensure that a chief, the customer, and the bank officer all together only verify, only visit him site there, they see for themselves that this asset actually exists, and then everyone look there only sign them off collateral certificate, Plomifala. That is what we're using at this point in time, because we cannot be waiting around for learning opportunities to just sit and wait because we don't have a registry in place. All you have to do is to satisfy yourself that you can make it happen. So this is what we're doing today, and it works very well without having anything else to add to it. But it is more better to have it registered formally. How we get around to registering movable assets that have no serial numbers on anything is a matter that we have to agree on. What mechanism is the best way to use and register those assets? At this point in time, we only have our own registry internally, but we know exactly where those assets are, because at the end of a loan period, we discharge of that asset. In the event of a default, then we mobilize all the three parties together: the chief, the lender, and the customer. In most cases, you know, got issue. Again, also I mentioned the first time that you have to educate individuals upfront to know of their responsibilities, exactly what to do in terms of difficulties. Securities are used only in the event of a default, but otherwise, every one of them will go through without any default. So that's good to see. But again, also, for us to be able to expand this network, you go around the full country, we can do it. There's no doubt about that one. I think John had raised an important point too, to involve cooperatives, but we have our own network, much, much bigger than cooperatives. Physically, we have 29 branches in the country. Around that, we have more than 300 banking centers across the country, starting from Vanuatu right up to Torres. It has been disrupted because of COVID, but things are back to normal now, so we will go back to enforcing this outreach through law and community banking. Community banking is involved with bank officers visiting communities in every site around the country, including small islands across the country. As I said, it's more than 300 banking centers across Vanuatu. It's quite expensive to maintain, but it's the only way. You have to continue to maintain them education, contacts, and pieces of new things, initiatives like this one here is very important to continue to expand. Somebody has to cover that cost. It's not going to be easy, but we're doing it in both ways. One is through the radio communication, through National Radio Vanuatu, and the other is actually physically visiting all the sites well, Semi mentioned it. I think that is good opportunity to starting off now, because this is what is necessary. Going forward, I think to grow the economy requires every party, so Commissioner Ahmed Ali. It's a partnership alongside everybody else who got interest in Hemi. So with us, Hemi work, but it could be better by having some formal system where Hemi are recognized and registrations. And if we can come up with a mechanism that recognizes assets that are not registered with serial numbers or something, like also Medalam, the cover is basically the biggest form of security we're using. In the EC house construction space, 90% of security is secured with cover. Right? You can see how much this is involved. The mechanism of recognizing assets is what is very important. The other second piece that is also important is timber, where you may not got full-up recognition plan, but we use a lot of support from the forestry department, valuing trees in rural areas. Sandalwood is the biggest one, of course, and then other timber species. So these are all assets that are standing there. They can be harvested at any time at one customer by default, and be very easy to access. But as I said, up until now, we have not used those assets. Individuals are becoming more aware of the responsibilities to observe the repayment responsibility. So that is a good side, because we are continuing to do education every month throughout the year. Not to the extent of the remote areas, country, but those that we can access easily, especially in the big centers, Santo, Malakula, Tana, but you've got the rest of the provinces that need yet to be serviced. So I may be very important to recognize the business opportunities that are available, and we can continue to promote this idea, because I think it's very important, people know me, especially in Vanuatu wanting to engage in economic activities. We have to be able to provide some level of comfort and confidence to people here. And we can do that quite well with, first of all, giving them the opportunities to save in the bank, and then growing those savings, and then utilizing savings secured by these assets to be able to borrow. I think that's what's necessary for us to be able to do. We do it okay now, but it's limited because of issues we're facing through low COVID, but we are hoping that next year on forward, we will expand much more into the rural areas where people are servicing for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's lunchtime for us, so we will all go for lunch now. The next session starts at 1 p.m., which will focus on mobile registration, engaging the rural communities, and the success of TAFEA. But for now, I wish you a nice lunch, and let's all head down to the beach somewhere there. This lunch is being served. Bon appetit. We have two financial dealers who are displaying the products. We have Titan FX on that side and TMGM here. The products are being displayed, but they will be, they're free, but you can obtain them at the end of the session. So right now they are still for display.